All right, so welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about something really fascinating, really, just a really interesting guy, Yusha Evans.
Okay.
His story is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So we're going to be, kind of dissecting this YouTube video.
Hmm.
It's called Future Priest's Emotional Conversion to Islam. I challenge the Quran at Yusha Evans.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
really good one. And so this guy, his background is it's pretty rough. Like he had a really tough upbringing, and he was actually on the path to becoming a Christian minister,
Wow.
but then he converts to Islam.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really about, I think this idea of transformation and also forgiveness,
Yeah, I think those are themes.
and finding your purpose. Like a lot of us are, searching for that purpose.
Yeah,
And he kind of, I think, goes through that whole process and ultimately ends up finding it.
yeah, yeah. I think you can see that kind of universal search for truth and inner peace that so many people experience.
Absolutely. So getting into his background a little bit, his parents got divorced when he was really young, and then, he had a stepmother who abused him
Oh, wow.
pretty bad. So he had a lot of anger as a result of that, just from his childhood.
Yeah.
And he also mentions that he's a black belt in martial arts. That
Interesting.
you kind of get this like layered, personality.
Right, right. So he's disciplined, but also has this potential to lash out, maybe.
Right. Right. And so unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. He got in this fight.
Oh, okay.
It escalated really quickly, and he ended up serving 7 years in prison for assault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it was actually during that time, while he was awaiting trial, that he really began to kind of question his Christian faith.
So this was like a pivotal moment for him.
Yeah. Yeah. It really seemed like it was. And so he was raised Methodist and had always, kind of had this plan that he was going to become a youth minister.
Uh-huh.
And he believed that, the Bible was the inherent word of God, completely without errors.
Yeah, that's a common belief.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And he was planning to study at Bob Jones University,
Okay.
which is like a pretty conservative Christian university.
Yeah.
And as he started preparing to go there and study, he really started noticing contradictions and imperfections in the Bible.
Oh, interesting. So, like, he was actually really diving into the text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. And so he ends up having this conversation with a professor where he like directly challenged like the idea of a perfect God having an imperfect book.
Wow. Yeah. I could imagine that would be a difficult conversation to have.
Right. Especially like at Bob Jones.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems like that was really a turning point for him, though.
Yeah.
To start questioning.
Yeah, I think it was. I think, he realized that this book was compiled and passed down through, generations.
Right.
And he's like, well, maybe this isn't like the infallible word of God.
Yeah.
So that really shattered his foundation, and he moves towards what he called agnosticism.
So did he stop believing in God altogether?
He still believed in God, but he kind of felt abandoned, like
No.
disillusioned with, Christianity. And he even mentions like he was angry at God for not making himself more accessible.
I can understand that. Like when you're going through a period of questioning and disillusionment, like a
Yeah.
lot of people experience that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so he went on to explore other religions like Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism,
Wow.
but felt like, something was still missing.
Like they weren't quite hitting the mark.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So here he is, right? He's searching for this truth,
Yeah.
still carrying this anger from his past.
Yeah.
And then he has his first encounter with Islam.
Okay. How did that happen?
So he mentions this African-American acquaintance who invited him to a Friday prayer at a mosque.
Okay.
And Evans admits he was like initially surprised
Yeah.
because he had assumed all Muslims were Arabs.
Oh, interesting. So he already had like these preconceived notions about Islam,
Right.
like even before going to a mosque.
Exactly. And so, his first visit, he had like mixed feelings. The sermon was like focused on Allah's forgiveness, and it was beautiful, but he was like, well, I've heard beautiful sermons in churches too.
Right.
Like he was searching for something more concrete.
Like he wanted proof.
Yeah, he wanted proof. And so he directly asks the imam, he's like, give me proof. Like, prove to me that Islam is valid. And so the imam gives him a copy of the Quran.
Okay.
You know, he takes it home, I'm sure, with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right, of course.
And he was determined to disprove the Quran's claim of being free from contradictions.
So he wasn't going to just blindly accept it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to put it to the test.
Like almost a challenge.
Yeah, like a personal challenge.
Yeah.
And so there was a specific verse that caught his eye, is 2.2.
Okay.
And it says, you know, very boldly that the Quran is a book without any doubt.
Mm.
And so that, along with the Quran's repeated challenges to find errors within it, really, really made him like, he's got to do this.
You got to take on the challenge.
He's got to find these inconsistencies.
Yeah.
So he spends the entire weekend reading the Quran cover to cover.
Wow.
And then, well, what happens next is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Tell me what happens.
By Sunday, after fully immersing himself in the Quran, Yusha Evans had converted to Islam.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just like that.
Just like that.
Really resonated with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of the lead up to his conversion.
Okay.
And so
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what happens next? I mean, he's converted to Islam. Like, what does that mean for his life? How do people react?
well, that's what we're going to get into.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get into. The rest is this deep dive.
Exactly.
I'm really curious to see how this all unfolds. This is fascinating.
It is. It's a really good story.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's pretty remarkable
Yeah.
how just immersing himself in the Quran
Yeah.
led him to convert. Like,
Yeah.
that speaks volumes, I think.
Yeah. And he mentions that even in that first reading, even though he didn't understand everything,
Right.
the core principles just clicked for him.
Yeah, like it was just like this
Yeah.
aha moment or something like that.
It was. It was like all those years of searching and questioning finally led him to a place
Yeah.
where things made sense, you know?
Yeah, where it all came together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this transformation didn't go unnoticed by his family either.
Oh, right.
His grandmother in particular
Okay.
saw a real shift in his demeanor.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, you know, you were saying he didn't, you know, he was kind of quiet about his conversion at first. He
Right.
wasn't like, you know, going around preaching or anything.
Yeah, he was just living his faith.
Yeah.
Not really talking about it. But
Mhm.
even then,
And even then.
his grandmother noticed like he was
Yeah.
becoming kinder, more helpful, you know.
Like a better person overall.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
And that's something that I think
Yeah.
that's a real testament to
Yeah.
like how genuine faith can impact not just the individual, but also their relationships as well.
Exactly.
Like his inner transformation was like
Yeah.
radiating outward.
A ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just his grandmother either.
Oh, okay.
Even his father, although not a Muslim himself,
Yeah.
acknowledged the positive changes, you know, he saw
Yeah.
and even expressed pride in his son's journey.
That's really beautiful because it really, I think that story really underscores the idea. Yeah.
That, you know, actions speak louder than words
Yeah.
when it comes to faith.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But of course, living one's faith
Yeah.
doesn't always come easy, right?
No, absolutely not.
So Evans shares this story about losing his construction job
Oh.
because he chose to attend Friday prayers,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which, you know, are a central part of Islamic practice.
Yeah, they are.
And so
We had to.
it highlights the challenges a lot of people face,
Yeah.
you know, when trying to balance their faith with the demands of their daily lives.
Yeah, like work and
Yeah.
having to go to prayer.
And like choosing between his livelihood and
Exactly.
his
Exactly.
commitment to his beliefs.
Yeah, that must have been difficult for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And but what's really fascinating is how quickly things turned around for him.
Oh.
Okay. So while at the mosque,
Uh-huh.
he was actually offered a better paying job
Oh, wow.
at a pizza shop.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like when one door closes, another opens. But in this case, yeah, right. Yeah.
It happened almost immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah. So that must have been like really reassuring.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, right. And like trusting.
Yeah, like a leap of faith. And
Right, right. This is
Yeah.
the universe is like, okay, good job.
Yeah.
You know, I gotcha.
I gotcha. Yeah.
So it's just really, I think it reinforces that idea of, you know, trusting in God's plan, even when
Exactly.
things are tough.
Yeah.
You know, just keep the faith
Yeah.
and things will work out.
Yeah. Yeah. So from questioning his Christian faith to embracing Islam
Mhm.
to facing challenges
Yeah, I mean,
and finding, you know, unexpected blessings,
yeah,
his journey is full of twists and turns.
it is. Yeah. And as he delves deeper into his new faith,
Okay.
He's struck by the Prophet Muhammad's character.
Okay.
What impressed him wasn't like miracles or displays of power or anything,
Oh, interesting.
but the Prophet's genuine love and compassion for his followers. Okay.
The Ummah, which is the
Oh.
term for the global community of Muslims.
Yeah, the Ummah.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good word.
Yeah. And he shares a particularly moving story
Okay.
about the Prophet's special dua, which is like a personal prayer.
Yeah.
It said that the Prophet had a dua that could grant him any wish.
Oh, wow.
And instead of using it for personal gain,
Okay.
he saved this dua for the Day of Judgment,
Wow.
so he could intercede on behalf of his ummah,
Wow.
even those who may have wronged him during his lifetime.
That's an incredible example of like
Yeah.
selflessness and forgiveness, I think.
It is.
Really powerful.
Yeah, it really speaks to his
Yeah.
character
Yeah.
and his, concern for humanity, both in this life and the next.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know some people listening might be wondering,
Yeah.
they might have concerns about like converting to Islam and
Yeah.
like what it means for their cultural identity.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Evans addresses that directly.
He does.
Yeah. He emphasizes that Islam doesn't require erasing your own identity
Right.
or abandoning your culture.
Not at all.
Like becoming a Muslim isn't about becoming,
Yeah.
Arab or Pakistani.
Right. It's about
It's about,
embracing the core tenets
Right.
of the faith.
yeah,
And still holding on to those positive aspects of your own
yeah.
background.
Yeah, and I think that's really important
Yeah.
for people from diverse backgrounds who might feel pressure
Exactly.
to conform to a certain image.
Yeah, like what a Muslim should look like
Yeah, exactly.
or act like.
Evans really highlights the universality,
Yeah, the
adaptability of the Islam.
Yeah.
And he also draws this interesting contrast between some Christians
Yeah.
who he says are chasing spiritual highs.
Oh, okay. So like that emotional experience.
And the Islamic approach to faith. He suggests Islam isn't about those emotional peaks,
Right.
but rather about cultivating a stable and unwavering connection with God.
Yeah, more of a
Way of
submitting to his will.
Yeah, submitting to his will.
Rather than trying to dictate the terms
Oh.
of the relationship.
Yeah. That's a good distinction.
Right.
It's subtle, but important.
It's about recognizing that faith is a way of life, a journey of learning and growing, not just a fleeting feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another interesting point.
Okay.
Evans was asked about, like, what it meant to him to be leaving Team Jesus.
Oh, interesting.
And his response really, like, gets to the heart of, like, his understanding of faith.
Okay, so what did he say?
He actually says that he feels like he's following Jesus in a truer way now
Oh, wow.
by worshiping the one true God.
Okay, so he's making that connection
Yeah.
between Jesus and...
Yeah, he draws a distinction
But-
between the teachings of Jesus and then the later interpretations that, like, he believes
Right, yeah.
distorted the original message.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it's really...
It's a nuance.
It's a nuanced perspective that I think challenges
Yeah.
the conventional understanding of
Yeah.
Christianity and Islam.
Yeah, for sure.
So now one of the, I think, most powerful aspects of Evans's story is his journey of forgiveness.
Forgiveness, okay.
And it's especially striking, I think, when you consider
Yeah.
the context. Like, so he had spent years in prison,
Yeah.
deeply immersed in his Islamic studies.
Uh-huh.
And he was actually the first white imam
Wow.
in the South Carolina Department of Corrections,
That's interesting.
which sadly made him a target.
Oh, no.
He was attacked and stabbed by another inmate.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yet, despite the trauma of that attack,
Yeah,
he chose forgiveness.
that's powerful.
Yeah, and he explains that it wasn't about, like, condoning the act,
Right.
but about freeing himself
Yeah,
from the burden of anger and resentment.
I can see that.
Like, he realized that holding on to that negativity was only hurting him,
Yeah,
not the person who had wronged him.
exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's like he recognized
Yeah.
that holding onto that anger is almost like,
Yeah.
carrying around a heavy weight.
Yeah, a heavyweight.
Yeah, and forgiveness
Yeah.
lets you finally put that burden down
Right.
and move forward.
Really powerful.
Yeah, it's a really great example
Yeah.
of how forgiveness, while it's difficult,
So difficult.
can really be a catalyst for
Mhm.
healing and personal growth.
Absolutely.
It's not about like you said, condoning what someone did.
Right, right.
It's about taking control of your own
Yeah, yeah.
well-being.
Absolutely.
And his capacity for forgiveness doesn't stop there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He shares maybe the most
Yeah.
poignant part of his story, which is forgiving his stepmother.
Wow.
This is the woman who abused him
Right.
throughout his
Yeah.
childhood,
Yeah.
and yet he made this conscious choice
Wow.
to forgive her, even though she never even acknowledged
Wow.
the harm she inflicted.
That's incredible.
He actually wrote her a letter
Oh, wow.
explaining that he was forgiving her, not for her sake,
Okay.
but for his own.
Wow.
He recognized that by holding on to that anger and pain,
Yeah.
he was perpetuating this cycle of
Yeah.
abuse.
Right.
He was becoming, in a sense, his own tormentor.
Right?
Yeah.
It's profound, really.
It is. It speaks to that deep understanding of,
Yeah.
That resentment is corrosive.
Totally.
Yeah, it eats away at you.
It's like he's saying, I refuse to let the past define me anymore.
It's
And I'm
right.
breaking free.
I'm taking control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really powerful message. And I think it underscores, what we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
that transformative power of forgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fascinating because Evans's story, it's not just about his personal journey.
Right.
He also offers this message of hope and purpose to others.
Yeah, to anyone.
Regardless of their faith.
Exactly.
Like he encourages viewers to look inward and recognize that, we're not here by accident.
Yeah.
Everybody has a purpose.
We all have a purpose.
And discovering that purpose should be a driving force.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In our lives.
Yeah.
He urges listeners to actively seek knowledge, to question their beliefs, and to make sure their faith is grounded in reason and understanding.
I like that.
Right. It's like he's saying, don't just blindly accept things.
Yeah, engage with it, wrestle with it.
Wrestle with it. Make it your own.
Make it your own.
It's a call to action, really.
It is. It's a call to live a life of intention.
Yeah.
Of continuous learning and growth.
Yeah. And I think that's really the message that I think we can all take away from,
I agree.
from Evan's story.
Yeah.
So this has been a really, really incredible deep dive.
It has.
His story is just so inspiring.
Inspiring and thought-provoking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it touches on, so many universal themes, like you were saying earlier, this search for truth, the power of faith to heal and uplift, the importance of finding your purpose, and this really difficult but essential process of forgiveness.
Yeah. Really important stuff.
So as you reflect on Yusha Evans' story, maybe ask yourself, what role does forgiveness play in your own life? Are you holding on to any anger or resentment? How are you pursuing your own purpose?
Those are powerful questions for all of us to consider.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep growing.